What was your point of view on gangster rap when it was rising around the same time?
Yeah.
I didn't really feel like it was something that I could be involved in just because that's not my world. And the label is super personal. And what am I going to be doing, like putting out gangster rap records? It just didn't really feel like something that authentic for me being the label and putting out records. It just wasn't something that I felt it was better for other people to be putting out those records. I mean, I like some of them, but I just, I kind of was into the opposite. Like the Far Side was kind of the anti-gangster rap group. And I mean, Tone was a gangster, which is funny, but that was like this was before gangster rap really happened. But and he was in a set and he was gang banging when we were actually making records with him, which was crazy because he kind of comes from a middle class area of LA. But Tone was hard, Tone liked that lifestyle.
Yeah.
So, but he could
Any,
switch
are there
up.
any,
He could be
are
a
there any,
gangster one day, and then he could be the funniest, just charming guy the next day. It just kind of depended who he was having, what he was up to. But when gangster rap really started happening in the early '90s, it just didn't really I just didn't really feel like it was an area that I wanted to go into. I already had some beef with gangster life, and I just didn't want to get into that. I valued my life on
You
top
know,
of the fact that there weren't really records that I wanted to deal with.
that's kind of similar to where I was going to go to ask Peter. Maybe not gangster records is what I was going to ask about, but during this time there was a lot of revolutionary, like fight the power type of records coming out. And I want to know, in the book, do you get into kind of the clashing between these type of records and like a pop rap record? And like what was that dynamic like, where there's this one group of people who are like, fight the power, we want to make these type of records. And I think like with the Grammys, they actually ended up losing to Young MC's record. So do you get into that in the book about kind of what that dynamic was like, and kind of maybe Mike's outlook on why you chose to go whichever way you want to go?
yeah, that's an essential question.
Great question.
Yeah,
Great question.
yeah, imperative to address this and to sort of pull the curtain back on this moment in the book. Because when Young MC wins the Grammy for Best Rap Recording in 1990 for Bust a Move, it's the first time that the Grammys have decided to televise the Best Rap Award. In fact, it had been a point of contention. The Grammys had always refused to televise the rap presentation. And there had even been a boycott by some of the rappers the year before, including the Fresh Prince had refused to attend the ceremony. So there was all this sort of inherent tension was bubbling up. Finally, the Grammys said, "Okay, we'll televise the rap award. We'll let these scary rappers on television." And the recordings that were nominated were "Me, Myself, and I" by De La Soul, "Fight the Power" by Public Enemy, which is still the most thrilling recording that any musical group has ever made, and two songs. Sorry, I think I can beat Mike Tyson, which was a novelty record by Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, and then two songs by Delicious Vinyl. This upstart West Coast label suddenly had two songs nominated for Best Rap Recording, and it was Tone Loc with Funky Cole Medina and Young MC for Bust a Move. And so Young MC wins. And as Young MC is giving his acceptance speech, Flavor Flav runs up onto the stage wearing a lime green bow tie tuxedo with Batman's sunglasses and tries to tackle Young MC. This is sort of this first instance of a rapper kind of bum rushing another artist when they're on stage at the Grammys. And
Young's wearing a tuxedo, by the way.
Yeah, Young's wearing a very clean-cut classic tuxedo, whereas Flavor Flav's wearing the most, fluorescent lime green outfit. But luckily, Young was maybe twice the size of Flavor, so instead of him being tackled, he catches Flavor in his arms, and Flavor yells, "Yeah, boy," into the camera, and then sort of bounds away. And Young MC recovers and continues thanking his accountant, and then he thanks Flavor Flav for interrupting, making his speech more exciting. But the thing is, Janelle, that by doing that, Flavor Flav showed that the East Coast was upset that this small West Coast label had come out of nowhere and steamrolled and got all the attention and the big recording industry award, and had how could Fight the Power not be the winner? Well, because this other fresh song had come out and had really captured the public's attention, and that's what the Grammys are really about, right? So the answer to your question is, I think a lot of the cats on the East Coast were upset that Delicious Vinyl had come out and sort of steamrolled their big moment, which was all of this groundwork had been built throughout the 80s of hip hop slowly but surely gathering popularity. And then at this peak moment, right at the end of the decade, suddenly the West Coast is winning. And I think they thought, are you kidding me? But it's all good.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much more I can say on that, because all those songs, well, not all those songs, but obviously Me, Myself, and I, and Fight the Power, and if it was Funky Cold Medina or Wild Thing and Bust 'Em Up, I mean, they're all obviously huge songs and continue, like they stand the test of time. So they're all great songs. If the award was just for best rap song, it's so subjective. Obviously, the Grammys weren't ready to go full militant Fight the Power, which obviously is
that's what I was gonna say. You
one of
don't
the
think
most
that
incredible records ever.
That's what I was kind of gonna say. Like, you don't think maybe that's a little reductive, where it's like, oh, it's just an East Coast West Coast thing versus we wanted this to be a different type of ideology presented, and now that they finally want to show the record, it's like, well, no, not this, which of course, I
mean, come on, has the Grammys really changed for 30, 40 years later? Come on.
No, that's what
Grammys are always like, it's kind of ridiculous. The best records now, well, not always, but and what's the best, it's subjective.
Yeah,
there's clear great records that get passed over, and those were all good records. So just on a rating the record thing, it's like it really wasn't. You could have gone wrong. Yeah, I guess it might have been nice for the East Coast, for Public Enemy to get recognized in that moment. It would have been funnier. It would have been a better acceptance speech. But Young Song was huge, and Me, Myself, and I could have won too. Another great song. So
I'm definitely not saying best. I'm just wondering if the book kind of gets into that tension and how you kind of get into it. So
a little bit, yeah, absolutely. And I think some of maybe the tension. I think the rappers actually themselves, the MCs, and everyone got along. I think it was maybe some of the people at Def Jam were a little bit aghast that so much of the groundwork that they laid had now been these other labels. This label from LA had come around and it suddenly was on top. So I don't know if we need to name names and stir it all up, but it's in the book for sure about the people that especially took umbrage at that moment.
We got a comment right here from Star Trek Ambassador. For Pete, any special stories about Pharcyde?
Yeah, there's a great story that John Martinez, the producer, Jay Swift, told me, which is that before the Pharcyde signed to Delicious Vinyl, they were just looking for a record deal. And they were going around shopping, and they had a demo. And they went up to... I think they went up to A&M, they went up to MCA, and Randy Jackson was the A&R guy. And Jay Swift said, that we played him our demo. It had this cornball song called What's My Flavor? And Randy Jackson, was saying, like, you got anything else? And Jay Swift says, well, we do have this song where we're talking about people's mamas. And Randy Jackson said, oh, I want to hear that. But luckily, Mike Ross swooped in at this moment and said, "No, we're the LA label. You're the LA group."
How did he pass? I don't think Randy Jackson was that dialed into hip hop at that moment.
I think that's probably it. I think he wanted to hear some
pass after hearing Your Mama. I mean, Your Mama's hilarious.
Well,
but a lot of labels. I mean, just a lot of labels passed on, unbeknownst to me, because my friend Paul Stewart was managing him at the time.
Right.
And he had worked at Delicious Vinyl in the late 80s. So when he was managing the Pharcyde, when he was managing any act, he would usually come to me and at least put me on blast, like, I think you might like this or something. And he did that with the Pharcyde, but I had found out later that he'd gone to every other label on the East Coast and the West Coast before he came to me. I think he was going for a big check maybe, and he knew, like, he might not get the biggest check from Delicious Vinyl, but like Ruben passed on it, apparently.
Tommy Boy
BMG,
passed.
BMG passed, everyone passed. So by the time it came to me, I don't know who was left, but I mean, I couldn't believe what I heard when I heard their demos, and I wasn't letting them out of my office without getting them signed. It was just like, I was so psyched to hear what they were doing. It was amazing. I mean, their demo, I think I don't know if it's in the book or not, but the demo that I heard them, that they played for me was Your Mama, Officer, and Passing Me By. That was the demo I heard.
That's crazy.
And they weren't finished, but they were very much the bare bones of what those songs were. Pretty
Right.
close, actually. So it was like, it was just like, it was incredible.
Word up. 1 second applause to Star Trek Ambassador. Great answer too, by the way. 504 Scooby. I just pre-ordered mine on Amazon.
Shout out 504 Scooby. Appreciate that.
Word up. 1 second applause. We have K-Wave for Real says, I love this conversation. Shout out to Mike and Peter. Question, how instrumental were soundtracks in the 90s to break artist singles? Also, shout out to Tone Loc, underrated actor on Poetic Justice and the show Rock.
Deep knowledge from K-Wave for Real. Much respect. Thanks for this comment. Yeah. Soundtracks. One of the soundtracks that came out on Delicious Vinyl was for a Steven Seagal action movie called Marked for Death. And it might not be the greatest action movie of all time. It's probably not even the greatest movie that Steven Seagal was ever a part of, but the soundtrack's pretty cool. And also Def Jeff actually has a great cameo appearance in that movie. But to answer the question in a broader sense, soundtracks were super important. I think as a hip hop fan, you were able to basically buy a great sampler in the form of a soundtrack. Soundtracks like, we were just talking about Fight the Power, but really that song first came to attention by being in the Spike Lee film Do the Right Thing.
That's right.
Good
example.
Yeah. So many films, a movie like Boys in the Hood, a movie like Juice. It was a great way to get a lot of good hip hop and also some pretty cool R&B or New Jack Swing, if you might like that sound, to go. Mike, you want to say something about soundtracks in that era?
I mean, depending on what the project is, sometimes the soundtrack is just, they give you a lot of money for one song that you can put on their soundtrack. So some people like to grab sound back then, at least, because it was a good payday for a track. Marked for Death was a great kind of opportunity, just because they wanted all Delicious Vinyl artists on the soundtrack. So even though the movie was kind of horrible, it was, Steven Seagal killing a bunch of Jamaicans, which is pretty awful when you think about it. He was really big at the time. He just come off a couple big movies, kind of he's killing other races and other movies, I guess. But we were able to put like our whole roster on this soundtrack, and then it got boosted by the fact that the company that put out the movie kind of elevates the soundtrack. So I think every artist on the label had a song on that soundtrack. And there was another movie. What was Snoop's first movie with Deep Cover?
Deep Cover.
Deep Cover was a movie that we were going to do the whole soundtrack to Deep Cover.
Oh wow!
And I was going to do the Heavy Rhyme was going to be the Deep Cover soundtrack, because I'd been working on. I don't know if you're familiar with the Heavy Rhyme. I think Pete mentions it in the book, but
For sure.
It's a bunch of brand new heavies, kind of jazz funk instrumentals that we laced with all our favorite MCs at the time. So, you got Guru, you got Master Ace, you got Drez from Black Sheep, you got
Grand Poobah,
Cool G Rap. I mean, just Grand Poobah. So we had almost the whole album in the can. That's the album actually that the Far Side ended up being on. They probably wouldn't have been on that record if we would have done it with Deep Cover, but that was going to be the Deep Cover soundtrack.
Wow.
But then at the last minute, I think George Hinojosa, who was doing the music supervision, played it for Dre, and Dre had this new rapper named Snoop Dogg, and they had this song called 187, and the rest is history. So it never became the soundtrack to Deep Cover, but it became its own thing, and Deep Cover introduced the world to Snoop Dogg. So I guess they won for sure. And And Heavy Rhyme is still, I think, a pretty cool record that not a lot of people know about. So I guess we lost on that one.
No. The longevity is the key. And the truth is that these delicious vinyl songs still play in movies all the time. I just watched this Sydney Sweeney boxing movie that came out maybe last year called Christie. And there's this incredible montage fight sequence of Sydney Sweeney boxing, which is what everybody always wants to see.
Of course.
Sydney's in there swinging, and Bust a Move's the song that they use in the montage. So it's just funny that these songs that they made in Matt Dyke's apartment for the purpose of having fun have endured as these great pop cultural resonant just jams. You know, it just still sounds great, and that's why young people get up to them. Old people managed to get up to him still too, and it was a real treat. And Mike was really generous with his time. And I think I did about 80 interviews for this book, and it's amazing how many people remember that period as really the most fun they ever had in their lives, was doing it for the love of the culture and just enjoying it.
Culture united, our culture united, connecting all over the world.